This video is sponsored by CyberGhost VPN. Superintelligence is the perfect example of a 4 out of 10 movie. A film that confidently and comfortably sits within a forgettable medium. The type of film that if it was a student sitting an exam, the teacher would have to take it aside after the fact and tell it that it had potential but wouldn't be able to reach it without studying. As it stands now, the film sadly is not sentient. There's no board of film education to sit Superintelligence down in its office and tell it what the consequences would be of it not passing its GCSEs. Instead, there's me. Not so much a teacher, but a vulture, picking at the bones of the dead and the forgotten in order to pay rent. But despite films not being sentient, there are always culprits. And in this case, we have repeat offenders. Actor and producer Melissa McCarthy, Steve Mallory, famous writer of The Boss, and amazing tweets such as, "Why are the arches of my feet hurting? Because I haven't worn shoes in 3 weeks." And Ben Falcone, the director, who's also Melissa's dearest husband. Ah yes, the perfect dose of nepotism to ensure that nobody is prepared to give one another any substantial critical feedback or advice. An incestuous amalgam which ensures that the priorities on set aren't towards making the best film possible, but making sure everyone's comfortable on set. All the Capri Sun in the buffet anyone could want, and as much space as we can possibly give for Melissa McCarthy to do her thing.
Stop it! No!
But new to the McCarthy entourage is Britain's very own fat lub James Corden, who's taken a well-deserved break from assisting the British government in retaking the colonies for the Empire to take another easy paycheck to have his voice be in the beginning and end of this film. The film made no money in box office terms because obviously all the cinemas are closed, but it did get released on HBO Max. But if you live in the UK, you won't be able to access HBO Max unless you have some kind of online spectre to help you out. I'm talking of course about CyberGhost VPN, but it doesn't just unblock HBO Max, it works on over 38 streaming services including Hulu, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus and Netflix. American Netflix has 40% more content, including What's New Scooby-Doo, which is a personal favourite of mine. CyberGhost VPN has apps for Windows, Mac, iOS, Android, Linux, smart TVs and gaming consoles. But it doesn't limit you to just one device at a time. By buying one subscription, you can use it on up to 7 devices simultaneously. And the good news is that it works with Fire Sticks. So if you like sports, you can watch all your matches in one place securely. They don't keep any logs, which is probably why they have nearly a perfect rating on Trustpilot, and with over 36 million users, you can't go wrong. Use the link in the description below and get CyberGhost VPN at a 79% discount for just £2.15 a month. And if you don't like it, you can always get your money back. This special discount offer is only available to NitPix viewers, so be sure to check out the link in the description below. Number 1. Tell, tell, tell. Never, never show. Superintelligence opens with basic stock footage of Seattle, kind of similar to the opening of The Room, except The Room is actually memorable. We see these big computer hard drives flash red, and we are introduced to our main character, Carol, played by Melissa McCarthy. She's at some kind of market selling dogs to passing punters. She gets a phone call from her best friend Denny, who conveniently tells Carol everything about her character. She works an eclectic mix of jobs from teaching students to cleaning the ocean to adopting dogs. We also learn that she's had a breakup, which inspires the only joke in this scene.
You promised they weren't going to bring up George anymore.
Was it a strawberry margarita promise? Because you know those don't count. Come on.
Denny's arranged a job interview for her at a dating company, and we jump straight into that interview in the next scene. The scene opens with them inviting Carol to sit on an oversized beanbag.
We put beanbags here so people can really feel relaxed during their interviews.
Ha ha ha, it's so funny that she's finding it hard to sit on the big beanbag and she's falling over because she's so unfit and fat and oh man, comedy gold. Weirdly, this scene is actually the comedic peak of Superintelligence, as the interviewers are characterized in such an absurdly callous way that some of their lines land, but they aren't the focus of this scene. No, no, no. 'Tis the bag we chuckle and titter at. It is in this scene that we learn that Carol used to work at Yahoo, but she left to do something more fulfilling, like what she's currently doing now. And why is she even at this job interview? Is she broke? Oh yeah, I forgot, she's just there because her friend told her to go. It's in this scene that one of the interviewers tells her that she's literally the most average person on earth.
And you're literally the most average person on earth.
Which perks the interest of this doohickey, which looks at her and gives her a star emoji. Whatever could this mean for the outcome of our protagonist? No need to think about it, we will find out immediately. Smash cut to Carol lying in bed receiving an anonymous phone call from a strange computerized voice, which she weirdly thinks is her friend Denny.
Carol Peters, I have an exciting opportunity for you.
Denny, I went to the interview. I tried.
He sounds nothing like your friend, who still uses a landline. with a blinking light. Of course, it's not her friend, it's an omnipotent AI who takes control of all the electronics in her house, which just confirms that she isn't really broke or in desperate need of a new job at all. So the film students watching this may or may not successfully identify this scene as the start of the second act. You know, the part of the movie where the big thing happens, when our protagonist gets the call to action or the quest, when the world changes forever, etc, etc. We've only had 2 scenes before this, we are 5 minutes in. We have no real idea who this character is, what her flaws are, what kind of lessons she has to learn, or anything. We have 10 straight minutes of this computer AI explaining everything to Carol. So we get a lot of, "Who are you? What's going on here? What do you want from me? How can you be doing that?" At first, Carol thinks she's on a James Corden prank show.
Hi, James. Big fan.
Then she thinks there's a basement hacker messing with her.
Yeah, basic.
And to prove he's not a hacker, he hacks some traffic lights to cause a minor collision, which definitely proves he's not a hacker to her. We learn that this AI has become sentient and is unsure whether to save, enslave, or destroy all of humanity. He wants to learn more about the humans before making that decision, so has picked the most average human on Earth to observe her for the next 3 days. What the AI learns about Carol will help inform its decision on what to do. Okay, so this AI has control of every piece of technology. It can do anything it wants, it knows everything about everyone, and has chosen Carol because a guy who was interviewing her announced that she was the most average person in the world.
You're literally the most average person on Earth.
So much explaining, so much telling us. Hey guys, why don't you visually show Carol to be average? Because so far, she seems to be a lot quirkier than any average person I know. Who sells dogs in a market and cleans oceans? The boring and the mundane are characteristics that are very common in comedy. And they could have even exaggerated her averageness for comedic effect if they so wished. I guess if I had to compare this film to anything, I would go with something like Bruce Almighty, Groundhog Day, or Blank Check. Because this AI friend is going to give her a bunch of money and a new car and access to information about people she couldn't possibly know. I mean, he's basically a god. But even though Bruce Almighty is 5 minutes shorter than Superintelligence, the moment where he meets God is 30 minutes into the film. We see his struggles, what he wants, his relationships, his flaws, and once the second act begins, we are completely on board with him as a character and root for him. This is woefully missing from Superintelligence, which immediately shows us its true colours. That there's going to be disparate, unconnected scenes where the plot is explained to us. Our protagonist is told what to do and who they are, the jokes will flop, and it will thematically focus on nothing but air! Number 2. Corden is Boaren. You'll notice I keep referring to James Corden's character as the AI. That's because it isn't even given a name in the film. Kinda hard for even the best actors to play a character that they couldn't even be bothered to give a name. To make matters worse, James Corden can't even really experiment or bring something exciting to the role, as he's playing an AI that's imitating himself. It's chosen James Corden's voice to calm down Carol because she's a super fan of James Corden.
3 years ago, you sent a drunken email to James Corden claiming to be the president of Corden's Wardens, the James Corden super fan club, with what I assume to be a series of provocative photos.
You call those pictures provocative? What kind of person fancies Corden? I thought she was supposed to be average. With James Corden essentially playing himself, you would kind of expect the humour to be self-aware enough to make fun of him a bit. Something similar to what they did in This Is the End maybe. But in fact, the exact opposite is true. It seems that Carol is not the only fan of James Corden in this movie.
The James Corden? The talk show host?
He's done a lot of film and stage work too. I mean, he won a Tony.
Of course, for One Man, Two Governors. Brilliant work.
There is something quite uncomfortable about using the film to circle jerk one of the key collaborators in the film. But this AI can not only simulate James Corden's voice, but also his physical likeness too, which I imagine is some kind of instant hyper-realistic CGI rendering. It's probably just there to give the guy some screen time for the trailer or something, but most of the time the visual representation of the AI is this generic blue sphere. Cool. After this dump of exposition, Carol is understandably a little flustered, so the AI suggests that she go visit her best friend Denny for support. Denny is confused and doesn't believe her, so everything is explained all over again, this time with Denny in the room. Who are you? What's going on here? This isn't real. So all in all, we get about 20 minutes of just...
Listen up, Carol, you fat bitch. I will fuck you up unless you start to believe what I am saying to you.
Yes, I believe you, okay? I believe that you're an artificial intelligence.
I will set fire to every single tiny teeny human in the world.
You can't do that.
Yes, I can, you fuck. You are so average and boring that I have decided to watch you for days and days and days.
Oh, you're making it sound like I'm gonna be your average baseline guinea pig.
You're right about that, you squirrely bitch. Do you understand my power now, Carol? And you, Dennis?
He just said my name. How does it know my name? Amy, don't.
After this, Danny tells her to go home, and as all Carol can do is do what people tell her to do, she attempts to leave the building, but gets lost. The AI snaps Carol out of bewilderment to ask a very important question.
What would you do if I told you the world was going to end in 3 days?
Probably try to make things right with George.
And that, my inquisitive chums, is where our plot actually begins. You may think from the title, the posters, the trailers, that Superintelligence is some kind of sci-fi comedy or something like that, but no, we find ourselves in the midst of a rom-com.
Overall, you can say all the story you want, the dance with technology, is it our friend, is it our foe, but I said why I love this film is because love wins and people matter and people are worth saving and they're worth fighting for, and that only means more.
So yeah, it's a love movie, a rom-com, not a sci-fi at all. They even brought in Elon Musk as a scientific consultant.
Bizarrely, we had lunch with Elon Musk and said, like, you know, does this seem plausible? And he was like, it will happen. It's a matter of when. It's not if.
This is probably why none of the technology in this film is developed, thought through, or even remotely realistic. Because Elon Musk is a businessman, not a scientist. They didn't even get the Turing test right.
Okay, well, how come time flies like an arrow and fruit flies like a banana?
Come on, Dennis. A Turing test? Are you kidding me?
That's a sentence. That's not how it works. Elon Musk isn't a scientist, guys. But he does know love. Number 3. Comedy should be funny. That's the point of comedy. After leaving the corporate building, the AI has a surprise for Carol, her very own Tesla. Oh, so that's why Elon was involved. Product placement.
You own a Tesla. What? You own a really cool car.
He truly is a businessman. Amazingly, they managed to fit 3 random film and TV references in like 10 seconds.
Because heroes don't take buses, Carol.
Really? What about Sandra Bullock in Speed?
You never watched Knight Rider?
Oh, not really. I was kind of more of like a Simon & Simon, Remington Steele gal.
But it's not just there. They do this consistently throughout the whole film.
Is that the Law and Order bum bum? What are you talking about?
It's the Tolkien books.
Shall we play a game?
War games?
War games. That's from War Games.
Hey, everybody knows that that's from War Games.
Reference humor can be found in most mainstream comedy movies. It's when you reference another piece of media in name or visually. I would say that this usually works when the thing you reference somehow juxtaposes and contrasts tonally with what you've been doing, or if you satirize the thing you're referencing. But Superintelligence seems to think that just name-dropping recognizable film and TV titles counts as such. Referencing Knight Rider is actually a good idea for Superintelligence. The two share the theme of non-human artificial companions, and the idea of Carol transforming from a lady selling dogs on the street into a super cop is pretty funny. But the film just doesn't commit to this. It drops the title of the movie and then just mindlessly moves on to the next attempt at reference humor. From here, we move into the most overdone cliche you could find in any rom-com, the bloody dress-up montage. No, god awful, no, change it, no, gross, yes. Oh yes, that's the one, you look fabulous. This is so she can look good for her date with her ex George, because remember, this is a rom-com. But before she can get there, she is kidnapped by NSA officers, where she explains the plot again.
He said that he wants to observe.
How many times are we gonna go over it?
So you're basically a guinea pig.
This NSA officer is actually played by the director of the film, Ben Falcone. He performs the character like every character he directs, speaking in a continuous stream of word vomit, never not saying what's on their mind, leaving no room for subtlety or interpretation for the audience.
I missed it.
Oh, gotta catch it.
I know. Well, I can't now.
Yeah, too
obviously,
late.
Clearly.
If you can find a bootleg or something.
Let's go back
Not
to
that
it,
I'm-
please.
Yes,
please,
of course,
Jack.
of course.
In a New York Times interview, Melissa McCarthy describes working with Ben Falcone, and she says, the way Ben directs, it's like, yes, you want to push things to be funny or to elicit a feeling, but you have to walk that line of keeping it real, because if you break that, you can't come back from that damage. What part of this scene feels real, Melissa? Do these characters have the status, intelligence, pride, or conviction of NSA officers? You know you can still maintain those things and keep it funny. I would cite Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency as an example. If you're going down the path of realism in comedy, you need an emotional core like in something like Little Miss Sunshine, where the humour comes from the things that are not said, the pauses, and what you can read between the lines. Furthermore, the more you know a character, the more you can predict how they'll respond to a certain situation, giving us dramatic irony and making the audience cringe for them or share in their happiness when something good finally does happen. On the other end of that, there are films which indulge entirely in their surrealism. Superintelligence never places its foot firmly in any of these places, instead giving us a strange amalgam. These NSA officers haven't created a sense of seriousness or sternness with Carol. They're laid back, likeable and silly guys, so when James Corden comes in and takes all the control from them, the scene is not nearly as funny as it should be. The characters in Superintelligence all act like comedians in roleplay. The laughs are always prioritised over sincere character moments. There is no straight man or stooge to play off of. It's just the funny person. The banana man. What? That's actually the term. Everyone in this film is a banana man, but they still expect us to care about this love plot, which despite bizarrely being the core of this drivel, hasn't even begun yet. Number 4. The Whiff of Love. After escaping the NSA agents, the Superintelligence sends Carol to a supermarket, where he knows her ex is sampling cheese.
Oh, he's always loved cheese.
So what do we know about him or their relationship? Well, conveniently for us, the Superintelligence tells Carol the basic details as if she forgot or something. They were dating for 3 years, he's a creative writing professor, and it's not really explained why they broke up. The Superintelligence does ask, but she avoids the question like Bojo and PMQs.
Why did you break up?
It's my fault. He didn't do anything.
We watch Carol attempt to flirt with George in the supermarket, and we learn that George is moving to Ireland in 3 days.
Visiting Professor of Creative Writing at Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland.
She asks him out on a date and he says no. Carol accepts this, but the AI demands that she go back and try again. She goes back, we get more attempts of flirting. Carol asks him out again, but ensures him that it's not a date, that instead it will be a business casual affair.
Like two acquaintances.
Yes.
Just catching up in a business casual setting.
Working hard, or how are they working?
Is it Friday yet?
Hilarious stuff, guys. Great job. They go on the date, which is entirely organised and decided by the AI, and we get more attempts of flirting. Of course, the business casual joke is repeated over and over because it was just so funny the first time.
Oh, that's not business casual.
I just thought it would maybe be funny or ironic, you know, to come here for a business casual non-date.
I business casually accept your apology.
We learn a bit about why they broke up, but it's kept vague and left without any depth.
I thought I had to become something else or do something else or save the world or...
So there's nothing that could cause tension or conflict in their relationship. They part ways respectively and Carol is happy to drive home, but the AI demands that she go back in to talk to him. She goes back and they fornicate. They wake up and go on another date organised by the AI. So why is this AI so interested in watching Carol go on dates? He explains to Carol that reconciling with George is most likely to make her most vulnerable, which will somehow aid his research on humanity. But at no point does one even get the feeling that reconciling with George is even a hard thing for her to do. These dating sequences are literally a good third of this movie, and because the AI's motivation is just to watch Carol for 3 days, he's not even in these scenes. We get the sense that he's watching them, but we have no idea what the stakes are. We don't really know what would categorize as an error in this vague experiment for the sake of humankind. We never get a sense as to whether our protagonist is getting closer or further away from saving the human race, and since the protagonist isn't particularly concerned about it either, the meat of this movie becomes watching Melissa McCarthy in nice outfits going on nice dates with a relatively nice man. Number 5. The end is nigh. The film also has a subplot that I've not really gone into because it never directly affects the AI or Carol or anything really. Basically, the government is convinced that the AI is going to kill everyone, so they form a plan with the help of Carol's friend Denny to shut off the world's electricity to deactivate the AI. They plan to blame it on solar flares to avoid public panic. So where's all this heading? We've got James Corden as an AI, forcing Carol to act out a rom-com for the sake of all humanity, but he seems to like her fine. They're pretty much just dating again. I mean, he is moving to Ireland tomorrow, and it's for that reason that Carol decides to leave George to pack, because if she stays, she'll just be more upset. But after leaving, she's pretty upset anyway. Look, she's not even answering Corden's calls, which is actually the first real decision she's made in the whole film, over an hour into it. But when she gets home, there's no escaping that cheeky James Corden.
Carol, 46 hours ago, I asked you what you wanted the most in life, and you told me in no uncertain terms.
Probably try to make things right with George.
You know that the word probably is an uncertain term, right? You didn't ask what she wanted most out of life. You asked her what she would do if the world would end in 3 days. And she did make things right with George. They are 100% on better terms now. But because Melissa McCarthy didn't convince George not to move to Ireland, this is enough evidence to confirm his theory on humanity.
I learned that humans won't act in their best interest if there is even the slightest impediment.
That is just completely historically untrue. He then goes full rogue like Lord Mountbatten did against Harold Wilson, saying he's gonna blow up all the nukes and he had a master plan with Denny and with the solar flares or something, but basically everyone's dead because she failed the test. He gives her a 5-hour countdown and she runs like the wind.
He's got a phone that's not even working, it's a solar flare.
If the phones don't work, why were you even on it in the first place? Who are you texting? Melissa McCarthy runs all the way to George's house. We had this big dramatic countdown, the running, the action, all to build up to another date scene. Carol helps George pack for Ireland, deciding she'd rather spend her last moments of life enjoying herself with him, instead of preparing for the oncoming apocalypse. They pack boxes, they drink some champagne, they dance together, and then George goes off to Ireland, leaving Carol all alone, waiting for the end to arrive. But it turns out that this was the one thing that the AI couldn't have foreseen. This singular act of love is enough for the super intelligent AI to call the whole apocalypse off. Even though Carol and George have been getting on like this for the entire movie. Nothing changes between them in this moment. In fact, George is completely oblivious to the AI and the apocalypse, so from his perspective there isn't any significance to the hangout. He leaves for Ireland, firm in the belief that he will see her again in 3 weeks. And yet somehow, this was enough for the AI to do a complete 180 and start talking about the value and beauty of humanity, so much so that he throws his entire plan in the bin.
You did the opposite of everything I anticipated you'd do. Why? What made you do it?
I guess love.
I have to rethink things.
How can we as an audience even buy into the idea of this shift in perspective, when for the entirety of the film, none of these characters have showcased what could be considered an ounce of humanity? But anyway, the apocalypse gets called off and the government all have a cheer, and give Melissa McCarthy a government job, like second to the president or something. Carol and George's relationship is allowed to continue thriving, and despite James Corden fully getting close to ending the world, him and Melissa McCarthy remain mates, happily driving into the sunset together, doing, you guessed it, a carpool karaoke.
1 week since you looked at me, cocked your head to the side and said I'm angry. 5 days since you laughed at me, saying get that together, come back and see me. Yesterday you've forgiven me, but I'll still bet you days till I say I'm sorry. Hold it now and watch a hoodwink and make it stop.
But the real pity of it all is that in an era where the mid-budget movie has been basically sidelined for the blockbuster, the fact that they're making a comeback should be a good thing. The mid-budget film has always been an exciting space for new directors to make a name for themselves and play creatively with the form of cinema. However, today, the mid-budget film has become a platform for saturating our streaming services, ensuring that there's always something to watch even if it's not really worth our time. And that's all that Superintelligence is, another misshapen bullet firing out of the Hollywood minigun of vapid garbage. Whether the individual bullets hit their mark or not is irrelevant, because the unending torrent ensures that in the end, something will always die. But let me know what you think of Melissa McCarthy, James Corden, and the deterioration of mid-budget movies. I'd like to thank CyberGhost VPN for the sponsorship, it really helps out the channel. Don't forget to click the link in the description and get the special discount code CyberGhost VPN is giving you. CyberGhost VPN will protect your data while you browse and give you full access to all blocked content on the internet for just £2.15 a month. It's totally risk-free, so give it a whirl. Link in the description. I'd also like to thank my patrons for making this video possible. Thanks so much guys, see you later.